Hi, David here, and in this video I'm going to talk about the tips and strategies for part 2 of the IELTS speaking test. So let's just begin by reminding ourselves exactly what happens in part 2. And you have 1 minute to prepare your ideas. Remember that the examiner will give you a topic and you must talk about it for 2 minutes. So 1 minute preparation of ideas about the topic and then speaking for 2 minutes. And although you can stop before 2 minutes, it's important to remember that really the expectation is that you continue and speak without finishing for the full 2 minutes. So let's just look at some example kind of topics that you might expect. So a kind of transportation that you often use, a song or a piece of music that you listen to, an intelligent person that you know, and one more, a party that you attended. So you can see that these topics are not that complicated, there's nothing tricky about them, and usually we can say that the topic relates to some kind of experience in your life. Now, the thing here, when we're talking about techniques and strategies to do well in the part 2, is that candidates often don't know what to say. And this means that perhaps they find it difficult to actually speak for 2 minutes. So I'd like to address this situation and give you some ideas about how to actually brainstorm your ideas. So let's look at how to get ideas about what exactly to talk about. Now, the first thing is to use the WH words as triggers. So these are the WH words, and I'm sure everybody knows these. We've got what, where, who, why, when, how. Okay, they are the most important ones. So if, for example, you are asked to talk about a song, then of course what might be, what is the song about? What do the words of the song say? Where might be, where did you find this song? Who sang the song? Why do you like this song? When do you listen to this song? When was this song recorded? How do you feel about this song? How do other people feel about this song? So you can see that these WH words are very useful triggers to get a lot more ideas about what to talk about. Now, it might happen that the WH words are a good start, but they might not be enough. You might get through the what, where, who, why, when, and how, and you still have some time, but you've got nothing more to say about that particular topic. So don't feel stuck. The best thing to do next would be to move on and talk about another one. For example, you would talk about another song that you know and that you enjoy. And once again, for that, you would apply the what, where, who, why, when, and how WH words as triggers. And that will give you even more things to talk about. Now, another third strategy that is quite useful is I call it stretching, and this means that you don't need to feel as if you are completely limited only to talking about that one particular topic mentioned. You can stretch it and you can go in a more general sense. So for example, if you have to talk about a car, transportation that you use in the city, then you might stretch it into talking about the problems of tourism, the problems of travel at airports, or anything that you like, really. So don't worry about being restricted to the particular topic, especially if you begin with your WH words and you have covered the specific issue in the topic, then you can get general. Of course, this will happen in part 3, but in part 2 you can also go into more general ideas. Now, remember here that the 1 minute preparation time is very important. Don't throw it away. So, in order to get your ideas together, you must use that 1 minute preparation very carefully. You don't, even if it is an easy topic, you don't get any bonus points if you say, okay, I'm ready, let's just start. Take the 1 minute. Now, in the next slide, I'll just give you a little example on a mind map here. And this example is just, for example, a movie that you watched recently. And let's say you just chose Hobbit movie. So you can see that even using the WH words, when you break it down, there's a lot that you can talk about just using why, who, where, and how. So if I look at the top branch, you can say, well, why did I see it? There are 4 particular reasons why I decided to go and see the third Hobbit movie. The first reason, exciting trailer. The second reason, the third reason, and finally, I thought there were great special effects. Then, if you look at who was in the movie, you can say, well, there are 2 important characters I'd like to talk about for the movie. The first is Gandalf. And there were a couple of things that I liked about Gandalf, but there was one thing that I did not like about his character. Another set of characters in the movie were the dwarves, and there were 3 things that I like about them. Then you could move on to the where. Where was the movie filmed? Well, there are 2 things I'd like to say. The movie was filmed in New Zealand, and I watched it at the mall of my local shopping centre. Finally, I think if I talk about how I felt about the movie, I'd like to identify 3 points that were really good about the movie, but there were 2 others that I didn't really like. So let's talk about the good points. And you get the idea about how if you can break these WH triggers into individual points, then it becomes a lot of information and a lot of ideas to talk about. And I think if I were to give that mind map to you and say, okay, talk for 2 minutes using this information, you'd have lots and lots of material to use, and it would be no problem to actually speak for 2 minutes. So this is how you need to think and how you need to break down your ideas so that you have lots to say. Once you have lots to say, the 2 minutes talk becomes a lot easier for you. So let's just look at a couple of samples, and these are really not complete samples, but they kind of give you an idea about how to perform in this part too. So the topic would be a kind of transportation that you often use. And let's say we get this. A kind of transportation that I use is the bus. Why I use the bus every day is because I must go to work every day. My husband uses a car, so I must take the bus. And when I do take the bus, I take the bus every morning from Monday to Friday. And then the bus is a big bus. It has air conditioning. Sometimes the driver goes very fast. And then it takes about 1 hour to get to the office by bus. I think that's all. So this is an example of quite a weak part 2 response, and we can see if I analyse some of the parts here, we can see that there's quite a lot of repetition here. I've underlined some of the parts there. You've got must, why I use, and then. The vocabulary is also repetitive. You've got bus, that kind of thing. So that would be rather a weak answer. Let's look at a more stronger example now. So once again, the topic is a kind of transportation that you often use. And the speaker says something like this. Unfortunately, I have to take a bus every day of the week. This is because we have only 1 car, which my husband uses. My commute to the office, it usually takes just under an hour, although it depends on the traffic. As long as I can get a seat, it is comfortable enough because I can either catch up on some sleep or listen to some music on my mobile device. However, some days the bus is jam-packed and I have to stand the whole time, making the journey a 1-hour nightmare. On these days, I arrive at the office ready to scream at the slightest provocation. So I hope that you can see that this is a more detailed and stronger part 2 description. And once more, I've just analysed and underlined some of the good parts. We've got connection of ideas with this is because, as long as, we've got some good vocabulary, it depends on, mobile device, jam-packed, nightmare, slightest provocation, that kind of thing. So you can see that there is quite a difference between the first answer and the second answer there. Now, once again, refer back to my video on what the examiner is looking for if you're not sure about the kind of skills that you need in the speaking test. But here you've got some good examples of the fluency, how the ideas are connected. You've got some good vocabulary, and of course the grammar is there's a range of grammar and there's some accuracy there. So let me just summarize what makes a good score and a bad score in part 2 of the speaking test. So details are important for a good score. Be as specific as you can. Use interesting vocabulary and speak at a good pace with no pauses or hesitations, and try to cut down on your grammar errors. So a bad score, of course, is going to be more or less the opposite, more general ideas and a lack of detail, speaking slowly, using pauses like like that, and making grammar mistakes. So what I want to talk about now is actually part 2 is very important. If you do a good part 2, then you're going to improve your chances of a better score, because in part 1, the examiner is thinking, okay, is the candidate low, middle, or high speaker? In part 2, the examiner is actually thinking, should this candidate be band 6, band 7, or maybe band 5? So part 2, the examiner is actually trying to decide more on a more focused score for you. So that's why it's so important. And actually, there are lots of easy ways to improve your performance in part 2. And really, this slide, I just want to show you how you can exactly improve your performance. So, as I said, you must practice part 2 because it is very important. And the more of these part 2 practices you do, the better you will become. It's just like maybe doing sports or any kind of skill development. You have to keep on practicing. One of the good things is that even though you need lots of practice, it doesn't take a lot of time. All you need is 5 to 10 minutes in your daily schedule, and you can get some practice in. So that's one of the convenient things, and really something that makes it much less of an excuse for you not to do. So here are the practice steps. Firstly, choose from the sample topics. There are lots of part 2 sample topics. You can use the ones that I've presented here in this video for a start. Then, of course, take 1 minute to prepare, and when you do the 1 minute preparation, remember the tips and strategies for brainstorming that I talked about. Then, of course, you've got to speak for 2 minutes. Now, you can do this alone if you like. Of course, you can use a friend or family member if you want to actually have someone in front of you to talk to. But if that's difficult, even sitting alone in the room or in your car even can work for you as well. Now, the next thing to do is to record those talks as well, because one of the things for improvement is to actually analyze and get feedback on your talks. Once you've recorded it, you're in a position to obtain feedback. So listen back, and what you want to look for is, where did I get stuck? What words did I miss? Did I need to use? What grammar mistakes did I make? And then, of course, how can I correct mistakes with grammar, mistakes with vocabulary? Maybe you'll need to go onto the internet, look at a dictionary, and maybe ask someone else to help you say something in a different and better way. But once you've done that, then you can apply your corrections, and then basically you need to repeat the talk, applying all those corrections. And that way you're going to be making step-by-step improvements in your part 2. Now, if you follow these steps many times, let's say you do somewhere between 10 and 15 part 2 practice talks, I can guarantee that you will improve your performance, and you will be on getting a higher score than anyone else who does not do this kind of practice. So there it is. There is some very strong advice for you. All you have to do now is put it into your schedule and make a commitment to actually complete these actions. But this is the end of the video on part 2, and I'll see you for the next video, which is about part 3 of the speaking test.